Welcome, everyone. Today, we are going to talk about all things self publishing. We are going to do our best to give you a high level overview with as much detail as possible. Whether you're deciding to self publish or use a publisher, all these different questions come up, and we're hoping to put it into perspective for you today and answer them. We are very fortunate to have MK Williams with us today. MK is an author and has a vibrant how to YouTube channel in which she can provide you with all detailed information in a deeper dive into what we're going to talk about today. So, welcome, MK. Can you tell our audience a little about yourself and your background?
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to talk about self-publishing. I'm such a nerd for it. Well, I started writing, when I was a kid. I loved to read books, loved to write. I was really fortunate in college to have a professor who encouraged me to keep writing, and pursuing it. And I had, two finished manuscripts. I was pitching myself to agents to go the traditional route. And I had an interaction, with a local author. It kind of threw me for a loop. I'm a bad millennial. I want to say that. And so I should have back in 2013 been like, oh, like there's probably Facebook groups for local authors like to make friends with. It didn't occur to me. Because I'm a bad millennial. And so I saw the local library was going to have a local author come speak. And I said, great, we're going to go. We're going to nerd out on bookish things. Of course, we're going to become besties. Like I just went in being like, I'm so excited. And I, went up to her after her presentation, just said, hi, said my name. I'm an aspiring author. And she just looked at me and said, what could you possibly have to say?
Oh,
Yes, yes,
oh,
yes. Whew. So that kind of threw me back for a little bit because I was kind of like, it was supposed to be all of us creative artists against like the man and the industry. And I was like, but you're not. Okay, well, that wasn't fun. And so my husband at the time, my fiance, said, well, you know, so you're not really working on your book anymore. You seem really down. What's going on? And I just, told him, I just feel like, nothing's going to happen. He's like, why don't you try self-publishing? To which I said, you don't understand. I can't do that. If I do that, I'll never have my book in a bookstore. I'll have to order all these copies and have them out of our garage. It's going to be so expensive. It's not feasible. And so I went online to prove him wrong and be like, here's all the information saying this isn't going to work. And what I found instead
oh no.
was, it was at the time where Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing or KDP was available for ebook publishing. You can get your book directly on Amazon. There was this thing called print on demand for print books. So I did not indeed have to order huge pallets of books and sell them out of my garage. And so I was like, oh, this actually seems doable. So I remind him often that I said, you were right.
Yeah.
Um, and from there, I went into diving into self-publishing. So I self-published my first book in 2015. And since then, I've released 13 books. I've helped dozens of authors get their books out. And I was really excited about it, putting it out there. Uh, People had questions, kept asking me, how did you self-publish? How did you do this? And I was spending my precious writing time answering questions. And I thought I'd be a real genius and start a YouTube channel, and that was going to save me time. um, and so
Save
that
you
was the
time, right?
genesis of my YouTube channel, and answering all these nitty-gritty questions was just like, here you go, a nice personal answer for me, but now I can write my book. So, and since then it's grown and it's been more than I could have ever hoped for, but that's kind of a quick stumbling down this path that has turned into this really beautiful career and community.
That's a wonderful story. I'm sure your husband smiles every time that you politely remind him that it was the right path. Uh, but you're going to align with our audience too, right? They are going to be so unsure. And I hear questions all the time from our clients and just people I talk to when they hear I've self-published. Why should I self-publish? They may feel, do I go with a publishing
Mhm.
company? Do I take this risk? So can you talk to our audience a little bit about that decision, how to come to realization this is what you want to do or even try, right? Because there's the option
Mhm.
to try. You can try to
Mhm.
self-publish and stop. So can you
Mhm.
talk to them a little bit about making that decision to actually move forward?
Absolutely. It's individual to each book and to each author, but then also each book that they write. I've worked with authors where they've had books that were traditionally published and did well, and then they wanted to go into a totally different vertical, totally different genre, and it just made sense to self-publish and vice versa. where they went self-published and then going the traditional route. So it's really understanding the audience for the book. Does that audience, where do they find their book recommendations? For that person, this archetype of who your reader is, are they browsing through Barnes and Noble and that's how they're finding books? Is it because they're part of a book club or book of the month club and it's whatever's shipped to them? Or is this someone who is a voracious romance reader and they literally can't get their hands on enough books? That person does not care if it's self-published or not. Is it available on the ebook store? Is it in the right price range? Is it in Kindle Unlimited? Cool. They're good. Whereas other books, the audience just isn't maybe looking where self-published authors are able to get their books or how they're promoted. So it really depends. Some of the authors I've worked with who also own a business where the book is an extension of their coaching business, of their podcast or things like that. It's really been a 50-50 split. There's one author I worked with where she had a very successful coaching business. She had a very successful course to train new coaches, and she had people in the course asking for a workbook. And so she had the aspirations of the traditionally published book, but she said, well, it exactly matches the curriculum I've already written. Why would I go through all these hoops when I could literally repurpose this and have this out years earlier to meet the need for my current students in my course. So she went the self-publishing route for that book. And then she shared with me she has aspirations for writing a children's book one day. Totally different genre and vertical. She says, yeah, I might look to traditionally publish that. I worked with another podcast host where they have a huge podcast network. Regardless of whether they self-publish or traditionally publish, they have a huge baked-in audience. But after working with them for several months on the self-publishing route, they thought, well, could a traditional publisher get us out to even more people? Instead of just selling directly to our audience that exists, could they get us further? So they decided to make that switch, and that was totally fine. That was their call. So it really depends. And it's so hard, and that's such a frustrating answer, but you're doing a lot of that internal work of like know thyself, like what's your patience tolerance? What's your threshold for waiting? What's your threshold for not being in control of certain elements? And what's your threshold for how much time do you have? Because when you self-publish, you do all of it. You have to make all the decisions. Granted, traditional publishing, yes, you have to find an agent. You have to submit it to publishers. Things are out of your hands, but also things are out of your hands so you can run your business. So it really depends.
I think that was a great answer. It's um it's difficult to know all of those things and bring them front to mind, which you just did. What do you feel are the pros and cons of self-publishing?
Hmm. So the pros are, it's your idea, it's your concept, it's your timeline. You have that complete creative control. So if you are outsourcing to a cover designer, if you don't like the cover, hey, can you tweak this? Can you fix that? You get to make those decisions. So at the end of the day, this book that has your name on it, you're like, yes, like I love everything about this book. It's exactly the way I wanted it to be. You have the control to say where it's going to be sold, how much you're selling it for. So you have that ability to be a bit more nimble when you notice trends start to change, or new social media platforms suddenly allow direct selling. Okay, I own everything about my book. Let's try that there. The cons are you
Mhm.
have to make all the decisions
Yeah.
on top of everything else going on in your life. You have to front the money for editing, for formatting of the book, for the design for the book, for marketing assets, for promotion. And so if you already have a good team in place for design elements, for marketing promotions, for other aspects of your business, you may be able to translate that. But I usually say like you need a book cover designer, not just a graphic designer. Like you want somebody who knows books. For somebody formatting your book, you want them to know how to format books and what the platforms will and won't accept. And so there's a lot of little nitty-gritty things that can trip people up and can just make the author feel like I'm at mile 25 of this marathon and I'm just walking it. Like, whatever, I get my medal, I'm done. When really that's the time to like be sprinting towards the end and like giving it everything you got, because by mile 25, the book is done. Now you just need to market and promote it. And that's the hardest ongoing part. But so many authors just get that decision fatigue by the time they get there. So have that in mind and plan ahead, and having a team to make sure the things still get done is a huge way to mitigate that con for self-publishing.
Yeah, the even my first book I published with Wiley. My second book I self-published a children's book just to see if I could do it myself, right? And then all of those, the formatting came up, right? How do I need to size the images correctly? Even if I hit upload and it said everything was great, there was always something else that came up. And you had to have, like you said, patience. You had to know technology. Even with the second book, right? I needed to reach out and look at MK, and that's how I came to know MK. I had to look a little bit deeper into the format of the cover because I chose a different size and I just needed to tweak things and wanted to be extra sure. So that is a big con, right? You really need to be flexible and have technology and patience. I think another con is the editing part, right? And maybe even the writing. So some of our listeners may have an idea for a book, but may not be a skilled writer. So that's what I want to talk a little bit about
Mhm.
next is how or what advice would you give those that are 50-50 on the writing and the editing and they're
Mhm.
just not sure? Should they really go the traditional route or should they give it a try and maybe use a contractor or a freelancer to help them out?
Mhm. So I'd say for somebody who has an idea for a book but doesn't feel confident writing it, most really successful authors you can think of all think they're horrible at writing. So you're in good company. There's very few authors I know who think I am the best author in the world. My you know what smells like roses, and nobody can tell me anything, because those people don't do very well on self-publishing or traditional publishing because nobody wants to work with them, because all books need edits. And that's why editors have jobs. So I would encourage that author to write what they can, write from the heart. But if they feel, yes, I would like to work with a ghostwriter or a developmental editor who's going to almost like co-write it with me, those people exist. They charge a lot of money, but it's done.
Yeah.
And so they can repurpose your words. And the one author that I worked with who had the course and turned it into a workbook, she worked with a ghostwriter to say, I wrote the way the course is structured is a script and a curriculum. Can you make it a book? And so that person did that. And that was a hefty fee, but that was all done for her while she was running her business. So ghostwriters exist. They have a job for a reason. Um, but I would say if you're going that route and you're already fronting the money for the ghostwriter, that is where you would probably self-publish. I would think if you have a big enough of a brand to get the attention of a traditional publisher through your agent, and you feel that you need help, you could probably work with them after you have the deal in place, so that way it's clear to everybody involved, like, yes, we're bringing in this ghostwriter who's going to help with some of the development of the book, and really push it forward. So there are options, but I would say give it a try first. You may surprise yourself with how well you do, and just know every other writer feels that way too. They feel like this was the worst thing ever, and then they'll have moments of like, oh yeah, I'm grooving now. I've done this every day for the past month, and now I know what I'm doing. And it just takes some time and maybe working out. You got to get the bad writing out to get the good writing, you know? It's like when you open up a pen that hasn't been used for a while and it's real dry and you got to scribble a bit. That's almost what like it is with getting the bad words out, and then, oh, the good words, like the good writing's coming out. So
Danielle,
And
do you
Kay, I'd
have
like to
okay?
ask you about timelines. So, do
Mhm.
you find that there is a specific timeline for someone that's writing a book, and what factors play into that?
So there's no true hard and fast deadlines, right? However long it takes you to write the book, you can write it. I've seen a lot of gurus out there say, write a bestseller in 30 days.
Yeah.
No, I mean, maybe it lands a number one bestseller because you have a huge audience, but then the reviews start coming in and it quickly um, tanks to the bottom. Or maybe that's your very first super rough draft is done in 30 days, but you're going to spend a long time editing that to bring it. With self-publishing, I like to say to people, it's going to take 12 to 14 months. And that's if you're really dedicated to the writing, you're on time with your editor to get everything there and back. While the book's with the editor, you're working on the design. Like, books move at the speed of books. So I like to say there's a speed of light, super fast. Speed of sound, also really fast. Speed of books is way on the other end. And that's actually to the benefit of the author and the reader. So those first ideas that you get out, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, eventually going to realize, wait, if I moved this chapter here, this would be so much stronger. Or wait, I can fix that plot hole now. I just thought of something. And so many authors I talk to are so grateful to have had more time to go in and do that versus the rushing of just getting it out. I know some authors who can churn books out, but they also do this full time, and they've been doing this for over a decade and they're also writing in a genre that rewards kind of that anticipated structure. The reader likes to know what they're going to get. And so they have a good formula. They have a whole series. They have all the characters. They're able to do that quickly. If it's your first book, give yourself at a minimum a year to self-publish. Traditional publishing, it's going to take a lot longer.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely does.
Yeah.
Experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get in the mindset for a moment that we've decided, or our audience has decided, they want to self-publish.
Mhm.
What platforms would you recommend and why? Right? Because I know there are a couple, and I would choose one over another for various reasons, but looking for your opinion as to the platforms they can use and which ones would be better suited for what purpose.
So there's a few platforms that I use, and the recommendation that I make for platforms is totally unique to the author's goals. So if I was working with an author who said, I have this huge business, this book is supposed to be like one added extra pillar of income on everything else I'm doing. You're going to be working with my assistant the whole time that I'm talking with you, like this just needs to get done. We're going to go with Ingram Spark. It is called an aggregator. So they have an entire distribution network. They can get your book to Amazon, to Walmart, to Barnes and Noble, to bookshop.org, ebook, paperback, hardcover, almost any trim size option you want, they have it, and it's print on demand, one-stop shop, upload, one and done, boom. That's really nice for the person where this isn't their only source of income. They have all these other things, just one stop to update things. A few downsides with that is sometimes you'll go to Barnes and Noble, like I had happen one time, and my book cover was for a weightlifting book, and none of my books are about weightlifting.
Oh my goodness.
And so there was just something that got crossed in the metadata. And so it took me longer between barnesandnoble.com customer service and Ingram Spark customer service to figure it out and say, just please, please, please put my book cover there, please.
Yeah.
Because it's a time travel book, not about weightlifting. So that's a downside to working with an aggregator, is that you're not getting that direct customer service with the retailers, right? Ingram Spark is just a distributor. For other authors who say, I want the ultimate control, I want to have direct access to everything. Sometimes they do a mix of Amazon, KDP, Kindle Direct. So they're direct with Amazon. So they're not losing any profits to a third party distributor. Right. They have a lot more tools available to them to upgrade their book page with A+ content. You can do the Amazon ads for your book regardless of how the book gets there, but I like to have more of that direct control anyways. There's other aggregators like Draft to Digital. Then you have the author who says, I'm going to go direct with everybody. And then for my aggregator, I'm only going to select certain ones. That is super complex. That is like you are a full-time, all you do is write books and you can manage that. Yeah. So I like to say for people who already have a very busy schedule of things, go for ease of use and go with an aggregator. Sometimes I like to see the combination of Amazon KDP plus the aggregator, because if, say, at least 50% of your sales or more might come from Amazon, it's nice to not have to pay that additional distribution fee for Amazon. I've worked with some authors who said, I just want a proof of concept. I don't want to have to send people to 10 different links. It's not my dream to have my book in Barnes and Noble. I just want to say it's on Amazon. I'm just doing Amazon KDP. And that's totally fine. They had that thought process. They made that decision. That's totally fine. Because you can always grow later. You can always add on more retailers later. So several other websites like Barnes and Noble has their own direct to consumer Barnes and Noble Press self-publishing platform. Kobo, which is a large ebook reader in Canada and elsewhere in the world, not in the US,
Yeah.
has their own Kobo Writing Life for self-publishing authors. So there are several platforms where you can go direct one-to-one with a retailer. But I would say for most people who are already busy, you're juggling a lot of things, the aggregators like Ingram Spark or Draft to Digital are super, super helpful.
I want to add one little thing about the on the print on demand, right? If our listeners are thinking, I want my book in Barnes and Noble, I'm going to choose to go with Ingram. They have the ability to deny your book in store, right? If it's not picked up. Do you have a few seconds worth of advice for those who think, okay, I chose Ingram. I want my book in Barnes and Noble. I go to Barnes and Noble. They're telling me it can't be in there, right? And now their dream is crushed after, I'm going to say, a good 12 months, right? They took our advice. What advice do you have for them on that one?
So there's a few things that you can do to make your book more appealing. So it seems that in the past couple years, Barnes and Noble has given their different branches and the local management there more autonomy to say, yes, we'll carry this book. No, we won't. Which is good. Like you would think like certain regional things too. Like I'm in Florida. We don't need to know about like how to survive in the snow, like
Right.
unless we're flying somewhere with snow, in which case we can get the book online. So the local stores have more autonomy to say yes or no. So a few things that the store is looking for is one, is it in the Ingram network, either through Barnes & Noble Press or Ingram Spark, where they could order it. Do you have a price that kind of matches a retail price that would match what the consumer would be paying? Are you offering the 55% wholesale discount
retail.
to the store? So effectively, if you're charging $10 for your book, this is not a good price, but it's easier for math. If you're charging $10 retail price, by offering Barnes & Noble the 55% discount, they are paying $4.50 for your book. And they're going to sell it at the $10. They're going to pocket $5.50. That $4.50 that they paid to you has to cover your print cost and Ingram Spark's distribution cost. And then, whatever's left goes to the author. So it is a very high discount, but it allows Barnes & Noble to keep the lights on and employ people and keep the books nice and stocked. So they're definitely looking for that 55% discount. They're looking that you have a price on your barcode on the back of your book. Now, a barcode and an ISBN are two totally different things, but the barcode will list the ISBN and you have the option to have no price or list the price. What's really nice about having the retail price on there is that, yes, Barnes & Noble may put it on a sale, but in general, if something's going wrong with the scanner, that sales associate can be like, $10, boom, done. It's nice and listed there. They don't have to guess. They don't have to go look it up in inventory. They want to see the price there. And you want to do like a marketing campaign. So I would say before the book's coming out, start to go to whatever events your local Barnes & Noble's putting on, get to know some of the booksellers there. And when the time is right, when you're ready, go in and ask, hey, I am a local author. My book is coming out. What kind of events or signings could we do? Hey, I have X many people who subscribe to my podcast. I'm part of a local huge book club, and they are all going to show up for my event. Here's so many people I think I can get. What should we do? Right. And so that is something you need to show to Barnes & Noble. I'm a good investment. Trust me, you want to spend this money because you're going to make money. People are going to come in. They're not just going to buy my book. They're going to buy other books. They're going to get the cookie from the little cafe. They're going to do the things. That's what Barnes & Noble is worried about at the end of the day, right? Like they're a business. And so going in with a one sheet with all the details of your book, anything about your existing platform, letting them know this is the ISBN, this is the retail price, this is the discount I can offer, that really helps. One thing that I do often suggest to self-published authors, and this works maybe better with an independent bookstore than say the big box store like Barnes & Noble, is to sell your book on consignment first. And so this puts all the financial risk on the author, right? Like you've ordered author copies, you've paid just the printing and shipping to get them to you, and you're just letting the book sit on the store shelf. And you're hoping somebody's going to pick it up. And at that point, there's usually a 60-40 split, 60% to the author, 40% to the store for the book itself. But then, say you're constantly doing this consignment with this indie bookstore, and they're like, you've had to come in here like once a week for the past 2 months because we keep selling out. All right, we'll order a carton of your books. So it's better for the author in several ways because you're showing that proof of, yes, I can get you sales. And you don't have to deal with returns. Returns can eat into all of your royalties if you have any returns through Ingram Spark or another platform, but it's not as fun because you had to front all the money for the books. So there's several options there, but ultimately it's marketing yourself. And also just know that there's a reason why retail's dying. And if you can't get your book into Barnes & Noble, that's fine. If it's on barnesandnoble.com and amazon.com, you're still going to reach a ton of readers. It's okay.
So you touched on my last point is right marketing and selling, which was wonderful. So can you talk to the audience then about marketing online? What things should they do, right? If they own a business, if they have a podcast, through their newsletter, through social
Yeah.
media, what are the big ticket items to get their book into their readers' hands?
Yeah. So I always like to advise readers or to authors, do all the organic, no cost things first, right? If you don't have all of that buttoned up, no amount of paid advertising is going to help because you're just throwing good money after bad because, well, you don't have any links on your website. So I would say if you have a platform, they should know this book is coming. They should be aware. You should be hyping it up. If you're doing regular newsletters where you have a personal section, say, oh, I'm so excited. I'm working on my book. I can't wait. Be doing cover reveals, title reveals, talk about the book. Make sure that there's no way your audience cannot know it's coming. There was one large podcast that I worked with, and before the first book released, we said, hey, anybody who pre-orders, send in your proof of purchase, send in your proof of pre-order, and we will make sure you're on an exclusive live podcast with the author who is the host of the podcast. And that was really exciting. And it was a lot of tedious work to make sure we got everything correct. And yes, okay, we got that proof of purchase and the emails went out, but it was worth it because we had a lot of pre-orders. There was constantly something to talk about on the podcast. Hey, reminder, don't forget to miss this. Only people who pre-order get this benefit. It was in the email pushes. It was on their social media. This should be a multi-channel launch, just like if you were launching anything else for your business. It's the same thing. You have to make sure people know about it. It should be, if you do a video podcast, it should be behind you at all times. You should always have your books behind you for real estate because that's a nice visual. If you're on a video podcast, maybe for the person listening, maybe they don't have a video podcast. Maybe they are going and guesting on a video podcast. Get that book right behind you. Right behind you, and the launch date right behind. Make sure it's visible everywhere. I know a lot of authors who do have other lines to their business. They have a little bit of hype beforehand. The book launches, they talk about it everywhere. And then 2 months later, it's like nothing ever happened. And a book is an asset for you to be promoting forever and ever and ever. There's no reason why maybe it didn't have the best launch ever. I've had really bad timing happened to me with 2 of my book launches where I had a book launch scheduled and 3 days before it launched, my dad died. So guess what I did for my marketing? I did nothing. Because that wasn't where my mindset was. I had a book that came out a few years ago, and the week before it launched, I had to evacuate for a hurricane. So all my plans were wrecked. I was a nervous wreck that all of the books I had ordered for myself were sitting outside in the middle of a Category 5 rainstorm. I was a wreck. So needless to say, the marketing didn't go off without a hitch. So for any authors out there who don't have the best splashy launch, don't beat yourself up. This is an asset you can continue to promote and talk about. And okay, now the audiobook's coming out. Let's say something about it again. Err on the side of talking about it too much because most authors I know don't talk about their books enough. Or they assume, well, I already mentioned on social media, I don't want to be too salesy. Be salesy. You worked hard on this. You believe in this book for a reason. You believe that this book is going to help your audience in some way, even if it's fiction, even if you think it's just a happy love story and the world needs more happy love stories. Talk about that. Talk about the reason why you were so compelled to spend a year plus of your life to write this and why you feel passionate that people should read it. That's what people need to hear, and they need to hear it often. I used to work in marketing when I had a corporate day job. And I think back then the stat was somebody has to see an ad for something 7 times before they'll click and they'll buy. And I can only imagine how much that number has grown exponentially with how much we're all inundated with marketing and ads. You can't talk about your book enough. And there's always things to say. Oh,
Oh,
got a
yeah.
month till pre-order. Oh, launches that this week. Oh my gosh, a week past launch. I can't believe I was so nervous last week and it went so well. Oh, reviews are coming in. It just got another review. Just had somebody ask me to sign their book. Like there's always something to say that's positive. And it doesn't always have to be me, 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 me. It can always be like, hey, I just read this other book and it's so great. Like I am so in awe of this writer and this author. I wish I had read this book before. And I'm so excited. I'm putting it on the shelf next to my book. That's how much I loved it. That's how much I respect it. Like whatever you need to do, like keep talking about. Yeah.
That's fantastic advice. I think a lot of people are shy, right? They're like, "Oh, I
Mhm.
mentioned it once. I don't want to keep posting on social media." So I love that advice. Our last question that we always ask our readers is to talk about being not your average CEO. And I think you went from, it seems like a corporate job to now
Mhm.
doing what you love full time. Can you
Yeah.
talk about your advice that you have for others who are not your average CEO or want to be?
Yeah. I think for me, my journey has been, I was always not on the corporate ladder. I was on the corporate jungle gym. Like I was always interested in different things and moving around. And my joke was new year, new career, quite literally, like just a new title, a new department, switching jobs, things like that. And it's actually kind of stayed the same running my own business. You know, the way I ran my business when I first went full time, that was before I became a mom. I was hustling. I had all these different lines of business. I was growing this, I was growing that. And then once my daughter was born, I said, well, I built it once, I can build it again. And that has been my rallying cry ever since, because with each phase, like babies nap a lot. I was getting
Yeah.
a lot more done when she was a newborn. I wasn't getting any sleep, but I was getting a lot done because she was napping a lot. And now we're I mentioned before, like when we were scheduling this, I'm like, "Oh, her
Yeah.
naps are a little less steady
Yeah.
now because
This
she's
I know.
maybe gonna drop it." And so it actually has forced me to really dial in on what's the most important thing for my business. So I would say for somebody who's not your average CEO is expect that kind of evolution in your business. Don't fight it. It doesn't have to be a hard 180 turn. Every other year and you're just like zigzagging. It should be a nice evolution of this no longer serves me. This isn't what I want to do anymore, or this is just where my phase of life is. And I would say if you've built a big business, like you could do it again. Like if there's something that's more important in your life outside of business, like you want to spend time with your toddler while they're a toddler before they have to go off to school and you don't see them all day, like do that because you're going to be more fulfilled when you come back and you build it back and you build it back better and stronger. So go with the ebbs and flows. That's my advice.
One, I love it. I can relate, and I know Danielle can relate. We're both moms, right? I have much younger daughters as well, so I very much understand. And can you tell our audience, MK, where they can dive deep into all things publishing? Uh, and we'll put them all in the show notes as always.
Absolutely. So the best place to find me and get more bits of information is on my YouTube channel. So the official channel title is Author Your Ambition, but if you just type in MK Williams, the letter M, the letter K, and then Williams, I'll pop up. It'll be a whole bunch of me. So you'll be able to find anything there. And like Nicole said, I really focus on the nitty-gritty. So I'm not going to go on for 30 minutes about this and that because I'm trying to optimize the algorithm. Nope. We're in, we're out. Here's your answer. Bye. Like, get back to writing your book, get back to doing what you're doing. I have one MK Williams, the number one MK Williams is my handle on Twitter or X, but I don't even post there anymore. Instagram, TikTok, all the places. So you'll be able to find me if you need me. And yeah, any questions people have, put them in my comments because that's literally what I mine to make my next videos. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, MK. You had such insightful advice, and I hope our listeners have better knowledge on where they want to go with their next book or their first book. Thanks so much.
And thanks
Thank
for having
you.
me.